Monday, May the 2nd, 2022. Hi, my name is Randy Cantrell. You are listening to Grow Great, the podcast. The website is growgreat.com. Greetings and welcome inside the Yellow Studio. What follows is episode number 1 of the rebooted version of Grow Great, the podcast. We are now taking on a more narrow focus on city government leadership. I'm taking on a co-host. Her name is Lisa Norris, and you're about to meet her in what follows. Technically, our very first episode. Enjoy. Grow Great is a city government leadership podcast with Lisa Norris and me, Randy Cantrell. Each week we share insights, experiences, and wisdom to help you and your leadership grow great. Our website is growgreat.com. Let me introduce Lisa Norris, and we will together give you a bit of a background on this reboot of the podcast, Grow Great, that is going to now be known as Grow Great with Lisa Norris and Randy Cantrell. This is a city government leadership podcast. Now, those of you that have been listening to me for any length of time know that I have no background firsthand in this space. I was afforded an opportunity 6-7 years ago by a city manager to work with some staff members, and I did everything I could, and Lisa's heard this story, and some of you may have. I did everything I could to not be engaged because I felt like I was a fish out of water. And the more that I said, I'm probably not the right guy for this, the more they wanted to hire me because they were a progressive city and they fancied themselves as a city that kind of operates more like a business. Turns out it was great. Turns out it was a great fit. It was a great experience. I fell in love with the category. I fell in love with these people. These are well-educated people. These are people with a heart of service. There was not much about it that I didn't like. And this is Lisa Norris. She is currently the Director of Human Resources and Civil Service for the city of Grand Prairie, Texas. I'll let her tell you a little bit about that. But before I do want to give a shout out to the current city manager, Steve Dye, and to his predecessor, a longtime predecessor, Tom Hart. Tom has been on the show. You can find it back in the archives. Tom was very gracious before he walked out the door and called it a career to give me some time. Also would like to give a shout out to the deputy city manager who has been very responsible, for the progress, so far and has been gracious enough to kind of say grace over our wanting to do this project. Cheryl De Leon, I'll give it the French oomph there.
The French spin.
Yeah, Cheryl is a forward-thinking. She's a forward-thinking leader who embraces coaching, executive leadership coaching, and so shout out to her. But Lisa, I'll let you have the mic.
Well, I appreciate it, Randy. As he mentioned, I'm Lisa Norris. I've been the director here since 2006, but actually joined the city in 1996 as a manager. And we went through many iterations of leadership change, of culture shift. And so I've gotten personally to be able to experience that and grow under these great leaders, grow under Tom, grow under Cheryl, grow under Steve, each of which has a different way of leading, each of which has benefited me. And that's, I think, what we want to do here, Randy, is provide our insights on leadership. I've been in city government about 27 years, was at City of Carrollton before this, just for a couple years. And then I came from private sector. So I've seen both sides, came from EDS, which is now Hewlett Packard, and it may have changed again. So 75,000 employees to a smaller entity with, just over 1,000 employees, and then to Grand Prairie, and we've got about 1,700 employees and a population of about 200,000 and growing. So lots of opportunities. I love city government because as Randy knows, where private industry has a business, we have a bunch of businesses under one roof. We have a streets department, we have a planning department, we have solid waste and recycling that does a landfill, we have HR, you have a whole finance team that does money. Thank goodness. I do people, I don't do money. So anyway, I love the fact that there's so many industries. The transportation department that does our DOT and highways and right-of-ways and things that we get to experience under one roof that makes it really unique when you're working in city government. And really HR being the hub, we service all of them. We have to figure out what are your needs and how do we get those needs met so you can operate. And I love that. I love our whole business. But that's pretty much my background. I met Randy, as he said, through Cheryl. I had never even heard of executive coaching at the time. Was going through a really challenging time in my career. We had a lot of turnover, a change and shift in culture that I wanted to adapt in our HR world. Not that anything was horrible, bad. It was just a huge shift. We had turnover. We had some personnel challenges. I always call it the 7-year cycle. Every department goes through something, and I always tell them, I'm sorry, it's your turn. So, with that being said, I was in one of those personally and needed just some support. I know what I'm doing. I'm good at what I do, but Randy helped bring clarity is what I call it. He just would ask questions. We talk about Randy being curious all the time. He was curious. And as I would talk about it, he's like, I think you have your answer. So you never gave me answers, but you led me to see them more clearly and more comfortably and to know, okay, what I'm doing is right. Because sometimes being tired and worn out and stressed for a long period of time just clouds your judgment sometimes a little bit. Not as if I do anything wrong, but you want to make the best decisions for your people because it's about them and not us, right?
Yep.
So anyway, that's just, Randy, a little bit about me, about the city. I'm in a great city, been here, like I said, since 1996. Wouldn't stay if it weren't for the culture. I live about 35, 40 minutes away. So it's a long commute, but it is an amazing culture about family. This is my work family. I think of my HR staff as my quasi children, even though some of them are the same age as me, and I protect them and try to grow them just like I would my kids at the house. So I think I shared a little bit about me. Did I miss anything of interest?
No, but tell us and tell me, what do you hope to accomplish, now with this reboot of the Grow Great podcast, and now are taking a real narrow focus, seemingly, to city government leadership. And we say on our About page, and you will hear us say this, I suspect, in future episodes, leadership is leadership. And the context here for this show now is going to be city government, which could easily translate into just about any public sector kind of stuff. But so many of the principles and the things that we're going to talk about and the insights and the experiences, I think, will be transferable. Given that that's our belief,
right?
What do you hope to accomplish by way of the podcast?
My biggest goal is to share wisdom and share insights that I've had along the way, Randy, that you've had along the way, that we've worked together upon to help us grow better leaders in our industry, in our world. I always talk about here at Grand Prairie, growing and sending them. Because while I want people to stay in our organization, I'm not afraid to send them out there to another agency or organization, and they serve great there, because that only reflects positively on Grand Prairie, because they know when they're coming from here, they're going to get good people. And I want others. I've had the privilege of being a mentor, much like you're an executive or leadership coach. And I think it's all about the people that we serve. We can serve up, we can serve out, we can serve down. And that's really what it's about. I'm hoping that I can just lend some wisdom, have a little fun while we're doing it. You and I laugh a lot, which is why I like that relationship most. And hopefully we can genuinely help you out there that are listening to grow great people yourselves, or grow yourself to be great. Either way, it's all about service. That's really what I hope to achieve.
I think two of the biggest changes that you can expect in this podcast, those of you that have perhaps listened for a short time, and many of you have listened for a long, long time, the focus has always been leadership. That's not going to change.
Mhm.
The narrowness of city government leadership is going to change, and probably the biggest shift is going to be that the show is now going to be on YouTube and done video as well. So not only will the podcast remain on all of the current platforms. If you are currently subscribed, you got to do nothing. If you aren't subscribed, click any of the subscribe buttons over at growgreat.com and you can subscribe. But you can expect a YouTube channel for those of you that want to watch. We can go ahead and tease a little bit without too much specificity. We're going to have some guests. We're not going to always have guests on, but we're going to be interviewing some people that we think can bring high value to the conversation. Lisa and I both feel like more voices, more perspectives, more experience and insight can certainly be helpful. Got anything to say about guests?
No, I think, I'd love, obviously, our current city manager, Steve Dye, he's recently taken over. He was a former police chief, moved up to the city manager's office to be a chief operations officer, similar to private sector. And as recently as of last October, moved into the city manager role. I think he'll bring a great deal of insight of what that looks like when you've been in policing for well over 30 years, and to move into city leadership, and it's a different role. And his insights, I think, will be key and interesting. He's a really fun guy, interesting guy to talk to. Cheryl gives a different aspect. She grew up in the finance budget world, right? That's what her background is. Mine has always been in the people side. I'm on the HR side. So truly, we hope to lend those perspectives, Randy, that will benefit everybody a little bit of something. It's really about relationships. And that's what I hope we can bring to the table of, just like you mentioned, perspectives. That's really what I think people will most enjoy, is hearing from different perspectives, and not only how it relates to my business in HR, but generally how it affects leadership. And leaders can be different and still be great. I think your theory, and you taught me, lean into who you are, lean heavily into who you are. You don't have to change, but we can tweak things, and tweaking things helps. And we'll be sharing that along this journey.
Well, and you said as you were introducing yourself, you talked about these people that, these three different leaders that you've had in the city quite recently. They're all different. They're all different. Their personalities are different. Their approaches are different. And that's the great thing about it, and that's going to be our approach. It's not a one-size-fits-all. Are there some fundamental principles? Sure. And you're going to hear us liken them to ingredients in a recipe. But, the amount of cinnamon that you put in your cinnamon rolls may differ from somebody else, and some people like pecans in them, and other people don't want them. Some people may want walnuts. So there's enough. I think there's enough bandwidth in all of that for people to personalize it and individualize it. And as Lisa's heard me say for a long, long time, to just be a better version of yourself. I think we're in a society, Lisa, that too many people are spending too much time wishing, hoping, dreaming that they were somebody else. Right. As opposed to just looking in the mirror and let's be the best versions of ourselves. Before we wrap up, let's rehearse a little bit. Our approach, we're in complete agreement that leadership is all about influence, and it is doing for others what they can't do for themselves. Lisa and I both tend to believe that the whole moniker of servant leadership is probably redundant. I don't know of a way to be a leader without service.
Right.
I'm not offended if people use servant leadership, but to me, if it's leadership, you've got the heart of a servant, you got the spirit of a servant, or you're not going to be much of a leader. But
right. Agreed. We're excited about the journey. There's a lot more to come, and we've got well, like you mentioned, we're going to have some guests on here. Steve will be an interesting talk. I know I'll try to get Cheryl on here. She doesn't like to be in front of the camera, but she's got a lot to lend and a lot to share that I think could benefit some of the listeners. And then, of course, at some point I'd like to have Tom. 3 completely different leadership styles that are all amazing, and all have perfect nuances to them that I think would benefit the listeners of any level.
And if you want to reach out to us and give us your feedback, give us any suggestions, just go to the website, growgreat.com. There is a contact page. It's going to be the easiest and most efficient way to get in touch with us and to give us your ideas, to give us your feedback. I'm going to go ahead and encourage you now to subscribe to the podcast. The YouTube channel is not yet launched. It will be. So after we get some episodes up, we'll get that going and hope that you'll subscribe to that as well. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the multiple voices that we're going to have, and it's not going to be just limited to the state of Texas. For those of you that might be listening in other states, we're going to make some friends. We've already got some friends. I'm going to make more friends with some folks that are out of state. There may be some uniquenesses from state to state, but they're not going to transcend the topic of leadership. The widgets that you may sell may be different from the widgets that somebody else sells, but the leadership to sell yours and their leadership to sell theirs, I think we've got way more in common than not.
I think a lot of the listeners may even have great people that they've experienced at their cities, that may even lend to some other additional speakers, that we may not know about that would be great on the show. And I look forward to just expanding yep. our knowledge base and expanding our interviews. And like you said, sometimes it'll just be me and you. Yep. And other times we'll have great guests that hopefully lend some insight.
And for those of you that are audio snobs, and my hand is in the air, Lisa has a microphone. So her audio's fine today, but it will be much, much better. It will be much closer to mine in future episodes. So I don't want people thinking, okay, well, wait a minute, because we do have some audio snobs, Lisa. I'm
learning how to get connected the correct way, Randy, through your...
Yeah, well, I have appropriately trained many people in our audience to be audio snobs because whatever my content may lack, my sound is always really good. So I've at least got that going for me.
And I will be spot on soon.
Yeah. Well, she's got the gear. I caught her at her office today and I said, hey, let's go ahead and get this thing out there. So thank you to all the subscribers who have been subscribing. I completely understand if you decide to say, see ya, I'm not terribly interested. I don't think that's going to be very many, by the way, because I think those people that are attracted to the Grow Great podcast are people that are attracted to leadership and are happy to try to make some application. But I get it. For those of you that are brand new, hey, welcome. We're really excited about the journey. I'm going to say it one last time. Go ahead and subscribe. You can go to the website, growgreat.com. You can click any of those subscription buttons that you want. We're on all the major platforms. So any way that you like to consume audio podcasts, you're welcome to do that. And it's May of 2022. So we're going to try to get going, Lord willing, here sooner than later and get this show launched. Any last words, Lisa?
Nope, I'm just excited about it. I'm new at podcasting, so Randy's going to show me the ropes, and hopefully, like I said, it'll benefit everybody, and you guys will have a good time like we're having on the show.
Thanks for watching and listening to Grow Great, the City Government Leadership Podcast. Our website is growgreat.com. For Lisa Norris, I'm Randy Cantrell. We hope you'll subscribe to the show, and we hope you'll tell a friend.